Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens seem to mistake regular people as customers, and the stories are freaking ridiculous, guys. And in this episode, we've got a Karen who decides to teach OP a lesson by robbing them. And as you can imagine, it doesn't go well. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So a thing about me is I have major RBF. Seriously, I always look angry when I don't smile. I'm also antisocial and don't do well with longer interactions with people. When this happened, I was at Target, at the time with my fiance. We were registering for our wedding and we had one of those scan guns. So I'm scanning towels when some guy walks up to me pretty aggressively and he tells me he wants to know the price of a lamp and for me to follow him. Now I'm not in any fashion dressed as a Target employee. So of course I tell him, oh, I don't work here, but you can go find a price finder. They're located on the walls. Hearing that, he decides to get closer to me and he tries to reach for my registry gun. He then screams at me, or you can do your damn job and scan this and tell me. Ugh. Now, my distaste for people in general has always been exacerbated by the entitlement of retail customers. I say to the guy, I don't work here. Now get the hell away from me. And I don't know why, but they always go for the obvious insult. Like A, I'm aware, thanks, and B, you're not exactly a looker yourself, sir. He goes on and says, I hate people like you. You're nothing but a fat, good-for-nothing waste of skin employee. Just do as you're told. Hearing that, I'm thinking, no, I may be antisocial, but I have a violent streak that's a mile wide, and I'm saving jail time for someone who's really earned it. So I did something that probably made the guy finally realize that he messed up. I called out in my restrained, angry voice for my husband. Now, my husband's not a big man, not even intimidating a tiny bit, but he's overprotective of me. So when he walks over to see a guy standing too close to me, my husband immediately starts puffing up and he gets chest to chest with this rude stranger. My husband says to him, what the F are you doing near my wife? Are you harassing her? Because it looks like you are. And seriously, the man could not admit he made a mistake. He says to my husband, I just want her to scan this and tell me the price. So tell your wife to scan it so we can all move on with our lives. At that, my husband just snorts at him and he tells him, that's a registry gun, stupid, for wedding presents. Hearing my husband say that, he does a slow blink at my husband and he backs away, mumbling that everyone is useless. My husband really did save me that day from punching that entitled idiot in the face. You know what, guys? Some people's sense of entitlement is absolutely staggering, as you've probably known from these stories. Like just marching off without an apology for the mix-up or anything after being highly rude and disrespectful towards OP. Maybe she should have given him a good smack with that scanner. That might have knocked some sense into him. And this person comments, to further illustrate the ignorance of the customer, had you been an employee with the scanning gun, there's no guarantee it would have been able to give the price of the item. It could have been in some sort of inventory, downstocking, or cycle count mode. That if he scanned it, it would have messed with a process that was already on the gun, in addition to not giving the price of the item. So this one's a bit different to most of the ones you read, but I think it'll fit here. I work as a ranch hand on my family's ranch in the middle of cow country, USA. The closest town has a population of less than 300, just for scale. It's one of the larger ones in the immediate area, over several thousand acres and hundreds of cows. Most graze in the pasture, but there's always some that are fed hay in the barnyard. Unfortunately, on this day, we had run out of our stockpile, so we called around to find who had hay to spare, and I was quickly dispatched to fetch. The only place that had hay available was a family-run feed store, about halfway between us and what's the closest city. And let me tell you, even cattle country's not immune to sprawl, as farms are slowly turned into estates for bored Karens to move in with their high-priced lawyer husbands. This story involves such a Karen. So our cast is me. I'm a ranch hand dressed in a stereotypically excessive amount of denim with a ball cap and work boots. And Karen, your middle-aged white woman dressed to the gills in her English riding outfit, complete with riding crop and helmet. Karen's the type of woman to make her husband move to the country so she could ride her horse easier, but then get angry at the farm next door because it's too loud. with all the farming and such. And here's an FYI, don't make a fool of yourself in such extremely small towns. No one has anything better to do than gossip. Now that the backstory set, I'll get to the point. I arrived at the feed store to pick up the hay. The store already started to stack my order. It was 120 bales outside, and this was gonna take 3 trips to complete. I paid for my whole order, and the first and second trips went without issue. I was thinking this is gonna be an easy day of stacking hay and driving, and that I would be done early. If only I knew what awaited me on my 3rd trip. So I pulled my beat-up truck back into the feed store for the 3rd time that day. The sun hung low in the sky and beat down on my neck as I began to load my final bales. I'm sweating away the final hours of the day when a white truck, a Cadillac EXT, comes down the dirt driveway. Now, for those that don't know, it's Cadillac's attempt to turn an SUV into a pickup truck without changing any of the SUV parts. As anyone that's driven a proper work truck will tell you, it's useless for anything but looking fancy and bragging that you have a pickup truck at the country club. At first, I pay it no mind and keep loading my bales. It pulls up near my truck. After a pause, which I can only assume was to straighten her hair and touch up her makeup, Karen emerges from her useless mobile and she proceeds to stare at me silently. I just give her a nod howdy and keep loading my bales. After each bale, she stamps her fine leather boots in the dirt, louder and louder. After 5 bales, Karen finally had enough. She then says to me, "Well, aren't you gonna help me? I would like to buy some hay. Today." The woman basically yells at me, and I say, "No, I'm not gonna help you, but I'm sure someone inside can." At that, Karen says, "I won't take no for an answer. Now load 10 of these in my truck while I go inside to pay." The woman said that as she pointed at my yet-to-be-loaded pile. I tell her, "No, those are my bales, and I don't work at the feed store." At that, Karen says, "Yes, you do, darling. You're the hand that loads them, so just do your job and stop being lazy." She then turns and stomps off inside, muttering about rude employees. How I was being lazy by loading my own bales, I'll never know. Karen reemerges as I'm loading my final bales from my pile. And seeing the pile gone and none on her pickup truck, she flies into a rage, saying, "Are you dumb, darling? Why didn't you load mine? All you stupid rednecks are the same and don't know how to listen good." She then rushes up to me as I again tell her that I do not in fact work at the feed store. I then throw the final bale on top of my stack on my truck. Loading complete, I brush past her and climb into my truck. And Karen screams, "I won't let you leave till I get my hay. Now get to work." She then runs to her empty pickup and she drives it to the mouth of the driveway, and she parks across it, blocking the entire entrance. She then smugly looks at me from the driver's seat and she yells, "Now be a good little worker and give me my hay." Now, the driveway was flanked on either side by muddy ruts filled with rain from the night before. To a Karen, it would seem impassable, but to a rancher, it's something you drive across multiple times on most days. As Karen sat smugly in the driver's seat thinking she'd bested me, I simply reached down, throw my truck into 4 high, and gunned the motor, and drove through the mud to get around her, down the rest of the driveway and onto the main road. And the best part was that my front tire splashed the mud high enough to cover Karen herself, as she had left her window open to yell at me. In a fit of rage, she managed to get herself stuck in the mud as she backed up a little bit too far, trying to turn around to follow me down the driveway. Oh man, guys, the cherry on top is definitely Karen getting stuck after getting splashed with mud. Like, if only some people had the sense to just stop and think, "Oh, if this rude person doesn't want to help me, maybe I'll go find someone else to help me instead." But I guess to some, the customer's always right? Even when they're super duper wrong. Alright, so to set the scene, imagine being really bad at school, yet you dream of being a game developer. Well, I'm a university student now, and I'm dealing with stuff that's way over my head, but I make it work somehow. And why would I bore you with the story of my life? Glad you asked. Because the day this happened, I had just finished a really tough assignment that I barely thought I passed. Afterwards, I dragged myself to the Walmart by me to get some ice cream, planning to retreat into my dorm room and contemplate my life choices while watching Netflix. So there I am, just getting my ice cream, listening to music, checking some messages on my phone, when suddenly my precious is taken from me by this random stranger. I was never touched, maybe spoken to, but I can't tell, because I don't give a crap about that. I'm an introvert, that's why I listen to music in public. The hag simply snatched the phone out of my hand. I wear Bluetooth headphones, so the music's still going, but she definitely has my full and undivided attention now. My first reaction was to be surprised. The woman was around 50 years old, I would say. She then says to me, "So now that I have your attention, I then interrupt her and say, "Give me my phone." Karen says, "Oh, no, it's my phone now. You're not allowed to have one while at work. As I've said, I need milk, and there's none." I just stop her right there and say, "You need to give me my phone immediately. I've had a rough day today and I'm doing my best to keep calm, so please hand me my phone and we can move on. Don't make me ask again." At that, Karen responds, "I don't care about your day. When you're at work, you help customers. After you help me, I'll think about giving it back to you. Would you prefer I do that or give it to your manager?" I then realize what's going on and I say, "Lady, I don't work here. Now hand me my phone or things will get a lot more serious." Now, somehow I must have hit her weak spot because I've never seen someone go into a rage mode that fast. Karen says, "Are you deaf or stupid? Where's your manager?" With those words, she stormed off, huffing and puffing. The woman was still holding my phone, so my logical conclusion was to hold the woman from getting away. So I catch up with her and grabbed her backpack, stopping her. Of course, she wasn't having it. She starts screaming, "Help me! Someone help! He's trying to steal my phone!" That's when a manager comes over and he asked what's going on. And before I can say anything, she's screaming utter nonsense. She screams, "He's trying to steal my phone. Call the police." Now, of course, the manager only knows what she said so far, so he tells me to step away from this woman immediately. So I let go and step away, and lo and behold, Karen starts running again. At this point, I'm ignoring the manager because she's making a beeline for the exit, and I was determined to not have my phone stolen on this crappy day. Thankfully, she wasn't a fast runner. This time, I yank her backpack handle and take her to the floor, thinking playtime's over. I yell at her, "Give me my phone and I'll forget everything happened. We can move on with our lives and everything's fine. You won't get away from me otherwise. Why are you trying to take my phone?" When I said that, you could see her face light up. She then starts yelling again, even louder, screaming, "Help! He just attacked me. He threw me to the floor and he's trying to rob me. Someone help!" Insert about 10 to 15 variations of this until the manager and security catch up with the lovely two of us. The only way that I can describe the sudden lateral displacement of myself is security removed me from her. I was tackled and held on the ground. The whole time I'm screaming, "She has my phone. She's a liar. All I want is my phone back. Check your damn cameras." Karen, hearing that, says, "It's my phone, you liar." That's when the manager says, "So unlock it. If it's your phone, you need to prove it. It would be the easiest way to resolve the situation, so please unlock the phone to prove it's yours." Karen says, "No, I don't need to unlock anything just because you say so. This is my phone. I don't have to do what you say." I then say to the manager, "Would you please call the police? This is not getting us anywhere, and I don't want you guys to let her leave with my cell phone." Hearing police, Karen says, "No police. It's my phone. I don't need to prove it to anyone. I'm going home right now." I tell her, "Yeah, that's not gonna happen. That's my phone, and I can prove it, you thief. You're not going anywhere." So security keeps us around until the police come not too long after. They get our stories, and I get it. A small woman telling a cop that the guy over there tried to steal her phone and knocked her on the floor does seem plausible. The officer says to me, "Sir, I'd like to hear your side of the story, as these are some serious accusations." I tell the officer it's my phone. She grabbed it out of my hands and she tried to make a run for it twice. And I simply yanked on her backpack because I didn't want to get my stuff stolen. The officer then asked, "Can you prove it?" Karen says, "Prove what? It's my phone. This is getting ridiculous." I then turn to the officer and quietly say to her, hey, it's unlockable by my fingerprint and my passcode. And also, my watch can ping my phone and make it ring. Please let me show you. The officer agrees, and I decide to use the Find My Phone feature on my watch. And surprise, surprise, my phone starts ringing. And as soon as it rings, she literally presses the power button to disable the sound. And she holds the phone up to her ear and she says, honey, not now. Some a-hole's trying to steal my phone and I'm currently talking to the police. The officer says, ma'am, if that's your phone, please unlock your phone for me. Karen starts entering random numbers. After the third wrong entry, the phone stops accepting new tries for a few minutes. The officer then raises her eyebrow and I knew I won. Karen then says, I must have forgotten my PIN because this situation is stressing me so much. That's when the officer says, please hand the phone over, and if he can unlock it, you'd better have a good explanation. With that, she reluctantly passes the phone to the officer, who then hands it to me. A brief touch of my finger later, and ta-da, a picture of me and my girlfriend appears on the screen. I then say, listen, I just want to get this over with. It's been the biggest waste of my time. Karen then starts screaming and says, you know what? He did not help me. I had to teach him a lesson. This is all because of the crappy employees not doing their job. Someone has to teach them a lesson. The manager then says to her, ma'am, I've never seen this gentleman before. He doesn't work here. Karen then says, but he's wearing the uniform, you liar. Manager tells her, not everyone with a white shirt and black pants is an employee. He definitely does not work here. That's when the officer and her partner escorts Karen out to the police car. I guess her explanation wasn't too great. I end up with my stuff, which was 5 containers of ice cream and an equally unhealthy amount of Pepsi, for free. And a total of 30 minutes of my precious time wasted by a Karen who looks like an effing hobbit. Honestly, guys, I don't know how she thought she was gonna get away with that. And with everything she did, I can't help but to think that she's got some issues going on. With that said, guys, do you think that 5 free containers of ice cream and a few cases of Pepsi was enough for that? I personally think OP deserved a little bit more, maybe because he was tackled and taken down by security and then physically restrained after being a victim of theft. But that's just me, guys. Let me know if you think that was enough. So my wife encouraged me to share this old story back from my college days, so here it goes. I used to work at a convenience store in my college days, one famous for its partially frozen, slurpable drinks. We were also a busy location, so we got a ton of traffic day in and day out, with plenty of regulars each day. I worked there for a few months, until a string of robberies started happening at various convenience stores in my area. One convenience store got hit too close to mine and my mom got scared, and she said, you're quitting that job and you're finding a different one. As much as I loved that job and hated quitting, my mom was right, and the store did wind up getting robbed a week after I left. Nobody was hurt. I found a job at a local grocery store shortly after that. So here's the story. After class one day, I decide to pop in my old store for a drink and some snacks. Bear in mind, I was wearing a red and black polo that looked distinctly different from the store uniforms, but used the same basic color palette. I was rather chatty with the clerk while I did my shopping. I then set my snacks on the counter and then walked to the drink dispenser, grabbing a cup. And before I could turn the nozzle to start pouring that half-frozen delight, I hear a familiar voice behind me. It was a woman who was a regular. Karen said to me, excuse me. I say to her, yes. She then says, can you pour me a large red one? I say to Karen, I guess, and then poured her one and started pouring one for myself. The woman then said to me, and I need some taquitos and some scratchers too. At that I replied, cool, that sounds like a fun afternoon for you. Karen then walks off to go grab something, and I head to the front to wait for my cashier buddy, Jeffrey, to finish ringing up a customer so I can check out. A few seconds later, Karen steps up and she stares at me for a minute. I felt her eyes on me and I asked her politely, yes, ma'am? Karen says, I thought I told you I wanted taquitos. What are you doing? I say to her, yeah, and you told me scratchers, and? She then says, well, aren't you going to get them for me? I say to her, no, I can't. Karen says, you can't or you won't. I tell her I'm not allowed back there to handle the food or Lotto. You'll have to wait for him, pointing to my friend. Karen then says, "Excuse me? I'm a paying customer and I'm in a hurry. You work here, so I take priority over you." At that I say, "No, I don't work here. I'm also a customer and I got in line before you." She then says, "Don't you lie. I know you work here. I've seen you working here so many times." I just respond, "Oh, I used to work here a while back, but I quit some time ago. Maybe that's why you recognize me." Karen says, "Very funny. Now quit being lazy and do your job. It's bad enough you're lying, but you're not even smart enough to realize you're wearing the uniform." At this point, I'm just irritated. I say, "Really? Of the two of us, who's the smart one? Now you need to look at my shirt and compare it to his. Do you see the style difference and a lack of company logo?" Karen then looks back and forth between me and Jeffrey, who's trying really hard not to laugh at my situation. We had a brief exchange of looks between us where I asked him to help me out, and he basically said no, this is too funny. After a few seconds, Karen gets flustered, clearly embarrassed. She then says to me, "Oh, well, you don't work here. Well, then why did you get my drink when I asked you? You're confusing people. Stop helping them if you don't work here." I just respond, "I'm a nice person and helped you because you asked for it. You're clearly not a nice person since you lack basic manners to say please, thank you, or even apologize for the misunderstanding." She then looks at my friend Jeff and says, "Why didn't you say something then?" Jeffrey says, "You just kept yelling. I couldn't get a word in edgewise, and he can handle himself." Karen then goes quiet, and she sheepishly asked my friend to get her taquitos and lotto scratchers. I just grabbed my stuff and hauled it off to the side. The register was right near the door, so I'm waiting there. Karen pays for her stuff, and she tries to walk past me, avoiding eye contact. Just as some final salt in the rudeness wound, I opened the door for her as she left, and I said, "You have a nice day now, ma'am." After Karen got in her car and she pulled out, my friend just doubled over in laughter at my situation. We kept mocking her and kept demanding a free taquito in my best imitation of a Karen voice for the inconvenience. Yeah, there was no winning with that Karen, guys. You shouldn't help people if you don't work here. You're giving off the wrong impression. Like, just admit you were wrong, ma'am. Instead of saying something ridiculous like that, say, "I was wrong, I'm sorry." Because the outrageous things that Karens say instead of apologizing really makes them seem like they're lacking a brain. It really does. A bit of background is I was working for an internet/phone provider in the complaints department. After a few years of working the call center, I saw this advertised role for a sales assistant and assistant manager at a retail location close to home. I thought, why not? So I applied for the sales assistant role and I was called in for this interview. As I'm waiting to be called in for the interview, I could see a woman muttering angry to herself, waiting to be served. The hiring manager comes out to me and says, "Thanks for your patience. We're ready for you to come through now." Karen immediately begins screaming at me saying, "Are you effing serious? I've been waiting for over an hour to be served, and how dare you cut the line?" And that's a lie. I always arrive half an hour early to any interview, and I was there way before her. The hiring manager says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, he's not a customer and he doesn't work here. He's here for an interview." At that, Karen says, "I don't care. I want to speak to someone right now or I'm gonna start breaking things in here. If you take this person in right now, you'd better call the cops too. You don't want to upset me." The hiring manager starts searching for available staff, but they were all serving someone. I say, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't work here, but if you want, I'm more than happy to help. What seems to be the issue?" Insert crazy tirade, how the company is crooked, stealing her money, and cut off her phone, etc. Meanwhile, the hiring manager is just standing, watching me. I then ask him, "Do you mind if I use a vacant PC to assist her?" He says, "Go for it." So I proceed to log in, as I already have a profile due to still being employed at call center. It turns out that Karen's got an overdue account and she wasn't sent the bill due to moving and not updating her address, so her phone was cut off until the balance was paid. I assist her with taking payment, all while keeping this banshee from screaming. After she starts to calm down, she begins chatting and laughing as I'm helping her. It took roughly 15 minutes to do this for her, and it would have taken 5 if she didn't spend the first 10 minutes yelling at me. Karen then says, "Oh, thanks. Can I get your card so I can come see you next time?" I just respond, "Oh, I actually don't work here, as I've said. I'm just here for an interview." She then gives me a confused look and then turns to the hiring manager and says, "I would hire him if I were you. He's very good." After she left, I went to the office to begin the interview, and I was told the interview was no longer required. I was hired on the spot for the assistant manager position, as they were all impressed with how I dealt with that crazy woman. So if you're out there, crazy Karen, thanks to you, not only did I get hired without an interview, I got the better position that I did not even apply for. Guys, OP totally deserved it. They all saw firsthand how OP was proactive, well-informed, could communicate easily with a difficult customer, and resolve the issue calmly, leaving the raging customer satisfied in the end. All good things an employer would look for in a retail store. So yeah, take notes, guys. Next time you have a job interview, maybe just pay someone to be a raging lunatic, threatening to destroy the place, diffuse the situation, and it might go very well. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled_people episode, where a Karen won't take no for an answer and she basically ruins her own career. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.